What's up, Ragin Nation? How's it going? This is Alex Yu, and you're watching the DC edition of the Ragin Nation show. This is Webster's. We're talking about all things matter me in the DC Extended Universe. This is episode number 57, and in this episode, we got a lot to talk about. There's a lot of activity going on at DC Films and Warner Brothers Pictures, and that is because I have a feeling that they're kind of scrambling right now, just because, well, Batman vs. Superman was a little bit of a mess, same with Suicide Squad, but it was still a financial success. Now, the only thing they gotta do to make it better is please the fans. I know a lot of hardcore fans really like these films, but there's a vast majority that thought it was a bit of a mess, myself included. Now, we got Justice League coming out later this year, but before that, Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman looks great. Justice League, you can tell from the San Diego Comic-Con trailer that they're changing up the tone. It's a lot more lighthearted, you can tell. It's very, very different. It feels and looks very different from Batman vs. Superman and Man of Steel. You can just tell, just from the look of and feel of it. So, it looks like they're changing things up. But I think, honestly speaking, they gotta get back down to the basics. And what is that? Batman and Superman. We haven't seen Superman since, well, we've seen him in Batman vs. Superman, but we haven't seen him in a solo story since Man of Steel, which came out in 2013. So now there's talk about the Man of Steel sequel. And there hasn't been a whole lot of talk about it. I mean, there was a couple of months ago last year when Henry Cavill was pitching ideas to the producers, but that's all we read about. That's all there was. But now it looks like the Man of Steel sequel is moving forward. And typically when they move forward, they announce either a director or a writer. They haven't announced either, but there is a possibility that director Matthew Vaughn could be directing the Man of Steel sequel. As a matter of fact, he was approached before, and now it seems like things are kind of moving forward. Kinda, maybe. There's a possibility. But anyways, let's just see what he had to say about that. After all, there is that news going on. Exclusive, Warner Brothers eyeing Matthew Vaughn to direct Man of Steel 2. Here's what he had to say on the very first time they talked. I think that's the one thing not to do with Superman, trying to do the serious Dark Knight version. Superman is about color and fun, or it should be, for me. So, if Matthew Vaughn is directing the Man of Steel sequel, it's gonna look vastly different from Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman. He's gonna add fun to it. He's not gonna make it look so dark and melodramatic. And the tone just felt very, very different from what we would be used to for a Superman film. So I think Matthew Vaughn is a good choice. I mean, he brought us a couple of very, very solid comic book films. For example, Kick-Ass, X-Men First Class, and also Kingsman, the Secret Serviceman, or Tales of the Secret Service. I forgot. Just Kingsman, okay? I forgot what the subtitle is. But anyways, I like those films, and I thought they were very decent, but most importantly, they were fun. And I think Matthew Vaughn can bring the fun back into Man of Steel. Now, the next thing that they should focus on is Batman, because Batman has always been the staple for the comic book films of Warner Brothers Pictures. It has been for the longest time, along with Superman. So now they got to focus on Batman. The unfortunate thing is that even though Batman, or rather The Batman, was tentatively scheduled for a 2018 release, that ain't happening. Batman is being delayed. The Batman is being delayed to 2019 because of some personal issues with Ben Affleck. And I totally commend Ben Affleck for this, because he said that he wouldn't have a Batman film released until they know that, or rather a Batman film being made, unless they know they're absolutely ready. And one of those big factors is that if he is ready. And apparently he's not ready, and it's due to personal issues. I mean, of course, they're dealing with the whole, him and Jennifer Garner thing, but there's more to that. He actually admitted himself to alcohol abuse rehabilitation, and he spoke out about it publicly on social media, and I think that that's very, very respectable. I would not want to see Ben Affleck work on a Batman film if he was not there 110%. We need him there 110%. And by we, I mean the fans. I don't want to see any of this like 50%, like half, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to see any of that. I just want to see 110% because they need to, well, they don't really need to outdo the Dark Knight trilogy, but they have to be equal to that or better. You know what I'm saying? So for him to do that is very, very commendable. If they're going to bring the Batman in 2019, I totally respect that. Now, with the Batman being delayed to 2019, there's obviously an opening. And it turns out that Warner Brothers wants to do another film for a 2018 release, because if the Batman isn't released for 2018, there's an opening, right? So apparently they want to get one of 5 films off the ground. And check this out. Here is the list of 5 films. Gotham City Sirens, which is that Birds of Prey film that's going to be directed by David Ayer. The Flash introductory film or solo film. Well, it's not an introductory film because we're going to see him introduced in Justice League. But anyways, Green Lantern Corps, Suicide Squad 2, or Dark Universe, which is essentially the Justice League Dark film where they already have a director, and that's Doug Liman. Now, if they're going to direct any of these films, or rather, if they're going to make any of these films happen, they better start working on it soon. Because we're talking about a 2018 release. It is now 2017. Therefore, they got to start getting things off the ground. Now, there has been all kinds of shakes and bumps with a lot of these films. For example, The Flash, they had their director leave due to scheduling or creative differences. It's usually one or the other, okay? But there has been a lot of talk about Suicide Squad 2. And Dark Universe already has a director, so I think those are the main 2 that could happen. Gotham City Sirens, they also have a director for that. That's David Ayer. But let's talk about Suicide Squad 2. Now, we already know that Mel Gibson has been in talks to direct Suicide Squad 2. But it's a very, very early stages of development. All it really was just them talking about it, and by them I mean Warner Brothers Pictures, like the producers, talking to Mel Gibson about it, and if he's open to the idea, he's totally open to the idea, but of course you gotta make a short list of directors. That short list includes Ruben Fleischer, who directed Zombieland, Daniel Espinosa, who directed Safe House, Jonathan Levine, who directed Warm Bodies, and also the latest addition to that list is Jean Collet-Serra, who directed Liam Neeson in a trio of kick-ass films like Unknown, Run All Night, and Non-Stop, and most recently, The Shallows, starring Blake Lively, the shark movie. And I think that I wouldn't mind seeing Jean Collet-Serra or Mel Gibson direct Suicide Squad 2. I think that I would like Jean Collet-Serra directing it for the action aspect of it, but I would actually rather see Mel Gibson direct it because I want a better story, a more character-driven story. And I think that Mel Gibson, I don't think that a lot of fans would think that he would be the best choice, but he's the choice that I would want. Just because I want to see a direction that's different than what David Ayer gave us. I want to see a direction that's vastly different than what David Ayer gave us. You know what I'm saying? So I'm down for Mel Gibson. Now, with regards to the other films, let's talk about Green Lantern Corps. There's a rumor suggesting that David Goyer could direct Suicide Squad 2 or Green Lantern Corps. Now, I actually wouldn't want him to direct Suicide Squad 2, but I wouldn't mind seeing him direct Green Lantern Corps if he's really the only choice. David Goyer, he directed Blade Trinity. Wasn't a great film. It was the worst of the 3, but still, I think he's a decent writer. He worked on, the Dark Knight trilogy of films. He did a great job with that. Blade 2, and I really like that. What else was there? Man of Steel was decent, and I think he's a really, really good writer. Now, he's had a chance to direct a couple of films, and I know that, not all of them were that great, but, there's a time when these directors who've directed bad films eventually end up directing a good film. Now, Green Lantern Corps, they really got to do something decent, because we know what happened with Ryan Reynolds and Green Lantern. Like, that was like a joke. Like, it was like an ongoing joke, and it's still an ongoing joke. So they need to do something good. But with the way things are going with DC films, like, I just think they need to do it decent. And it really comes down to the direction they're going in. And I think that they're going in a good direction, as in not focusing on Hal Jordan. If they get like the Green Lantern Corps, which is what they're doing, they could have a couple of characters to have it focused on, almost like a buddy film. And I think that could work. So that's what's happening with Green Lantern Corps. David Goyer could be directing Green Lantern Corps. Last thing I want to talk about is Aquaman. Aquaman got delayed a couple of months. It was originally slated for a release of October 5th, 2018, but it's got bumped back to December 1st, 2018. Now, the crazy thing is that this happened immediately after Sony announced that they will be releasing a Venom solo film on that original date that Aquaman was going to be released on October 5th, 2018. Now, I don't know exactly when the timeline of events happened. It could be Aquaman pushed itself back, and then Sony decided to take that spot, or Sony decided to take that spot, and then Aquaman got pushed back. So it's one or the other, but either way, you know, they shouldn't be taking that spot anymore. I mean, you know, that spot is going to be dominated by Sony and their Venom film, and which I think fans are actually going to give a chance. You know, DC, they got to play it safe right now, just because they're not exactly winning fans over, or at least a lot of fans. I know there are people that really like that. I respect that. But there are a lot of fans that, you know, think that, like, you know, DC Films is really not doing what Marvel's doing, and I think that's totally fine. As long as they're, you know, a lot of people are watching their movies at the end of the day, I think they're fine. But they don't have to do what Marvel is doing. As a matter of fact, I think I'd be okay with them staying the same as they are. I'm just going to not take their films as seriously as I take the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that's just my honest truth. So, there you have it. Anyways, what do you guys think about Mel Gibson directing Suicide Squad 2? I'd love to see it happen. Matthew Vaughn is the perfect director for a Man of Steel sequel, but I'm curious, if they're going to have a Man of Steel sequel, which villain are they going to bring into the mix? You know what? I'd love to see Brainiac. I just want to see Brainiac. Like, we've already seen the Lex Luthor story, you know, a couple of times already, and I think it's about time we see someone different. So bring on Brainiac. Anyways, that's all I got to say in this episode. If you want to talk about anything that I've talked about, use the comment section, and I will see you soon. As always, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like me on Facebook, The Ragin Nation. Also follow me on Twitter, Ragin Nation. My name is Alex. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace. Those musical numbers, I mean, the pacing was perfect. And of course, it had that very, very magical and Disney-like fantastical feel to it.